Okay, so I'm going to be a little self-indulgent just because I want you to know where this all comes from and how it came about and why I am so passionate about it. Back in 1991 or two, I moved from Japan to Los Angeles. I weighed 230 pounds. And I was being hired to teach in the Los Angeles Community College District, and I needed to take a physical. My doctor told me that unless I agreed to lose 30 pounds, he wouldn't sign the form and I couldn't get a job. So he sent me to a nutritionist who put me on, if you know anything about the 90s, it was a low fat, fat-free diet. And she was great. I liked her. I went to her rather religiously. It cost me a lot of money. And then, of course, it the fat-free diet worked because it was based on calories in, calories out. That works, particularly when you're young. And it's not healthy, but it works. And so, and she showed me 4 ounces of meat, and we talked about protein and fats, and then she showed me how many, what the size of beans I could eat. Listen to the way I phrased that. The amount of beans I could eat instead of the caloric content of that 4 ounce piece of meat. And I was impressed by that. And I had a friend who was a vegetarian at the time, lacto ovo, meaning cheese and eggs. But for low fat, that meant egg whites and vegan cheese, which maybe it's come a long way, but back then, no. Anyway, so I ended up becoming a vegetarian because I couldn't. Uh, I was hungry all the time. I was crazy. And I lost the weight. It came back eventually with a vengeance, but I lost the weight. Fast forward now, 2004. I'm now in Pennsylvania. I moved to Pennsylvania. My doctor looks at me. Actually, it wasn't her, it was her office clerk who called me up and said, "The doctor says you're diabetic. Watch what you eat." Excuse me? I don't know what that means. She just gave me this so flippantly, gave me that information. And I got scared. I said, "Well, what does that mean?" "I don't know. There's a class over at the hospital. If you want me, I'll give you the number." Okay. Uh, uh, you know, uh, can I talk to the doctor, please? "Well, I can make an appointment for you." And it was, of course, 2 months out. So, I was very frustrated. And I'll be honest with you, I thought I needed another doctor because I didn't think it was right that the secretary of that practice told me I was diabetic. That should have come from a doctor. I wrote the doctor a letter and told her that. When I picked up a copy of my file, which I had to pay $25 for at the time, the letter wasn't in. All right, enough said. Found a new doctor, told me the same thing. "You're diabetic." Handed me a prescription for metformin and sent me to talk to this nutritionist. The nutritionist, she worked at the hospital. She was very nice. She showed me the food pyramid. That was before my plate. It's now called my plate, but she showed me the food pyramid, told me to get 60% of my calories from complex carbohydrates. That means whole grains, she told me. And then, uh, and I should eat every 2 hours, smaller meals every 2 hours to keep my blood sugar levels steady. That's what she told me. You are about to learn how bad that advice was. I followed her advice. Every 4 months, I'm going to my doctor. He's doing blood work. For a while, it was pretty okay, and then it started getting worse. I got a second medication called the sulfonylurea. Keep going, keep going. 2018, when the doctor said that diabetes was chronic and progressive, he was absolutely right. But I'm going to tell you a secret. It's only right if you follow the standard advice. It doesn't have to be chronic and progressive. Sorry. Anyway, so my A1C, which is this 3 month average of your blood sugar, was through the roof. He wanted to put me on a third medication before injected insulin. I freaked out. I said, give me a list of the choices and I'll look them up. He said, if you read about them, you won't want to take any of them. You know what? He was absolutely right. So I started looking, examining. And of course, when you Google like diabetes, every miracle tea and gummy bear, all this stuff, all of this bull crap stuff. Take this secret tea. There's no diabetes in this mountaintop village. Take this. This is the secret of their wellness. Of course, that all came across, but I'm not stupid. I mean, I hoped. I did take cinnamon for a long time. But the truth is, what I found was a few doctors, real doctors, Jason Fung, Timothy Noakes, Ken Berry. They're all on YouTube if you want to find them. Ben Bickman, although he wasn't back then, he came later. Amazing. And they're telling me that if I do this low carb, high fat, and I didn't buy into the high fat, remember the unlearning we have to do. I didn't buy into the high fat. If I did this low carb diet, people all over the world are reversing their diabetes. And some of it under the banner of the Atkins diet and the ketogenic diet. So I started. Jason Fung was the intermittent fasting, which we now call time restricted eating. But I'm looking at this stuff and I just started experimenting, biohacking on my own body, testing my blood every finger every day and trying, I'm going to get this under control. I needed to understand what was going on in my body. And as I learned and as I understood and I made changes, they worked. I want you to know within 6 weeks, I didn't say, I've tried to find the spreadsheet that I took to my doctor, but I can't find it. Within 6 weeks, I was off all of my medications. Within 3 weeks, I had experienced low blood sugar. So I cut the sulfonylurea in half. Within 6 weeks, I would stop taking them all. I never took the third one. So 4 months after my doctor sent me that list, I had another appointment. And I go in, my A1C in the last appointment was near 10, which was the highest it had ever been for me. And I was a good diabetic. I was a good diabetic. I did what I was supposed to do. I took my meds, I ate properly. The only thing I refused to compromise, I wasn't going to eat whole foods. I'm Italian, I can't do that. Anyway, so I go in and my A1C was 5.4. That's not even pre-diabetic. That's not even pre-diabetic. 5.4 is in the normal range. And I handed him this spreadsheet, which I can't find. I handed him this spreadsheet and he's looking at it and he's like, and I'm trying to tell him, I'm excited. I thought he would be excited too. He was baffled. Yeah, he said something about the medications, and I said, Doc, I haven't taken them in 3 months. And you should have seen his face. He didn't know what to do. Talk about living in cognitive dissonance. And, I will tell you, I went back, I kept going to him for 3 years, trying to get him to pay attention. And all he would say is the numbers don't lie. I guess he didn't think I would keep it up. I don't know. The numbers don't lie. Finally, I forced him. I said, I want an insulin resistance test. And I forced it. I pushed. I got the insulin resistance test. This was amazing. It was called cardio insulin resistance. I have no idea what that means. But anyway, I took it. And the cutoff for insulin to be considered insulin resistant, you had to score 33 or higher. I scored 6. Insulin sensitive. Oh. So what happened to me? I mean, I ended up actually late, just in the last year, going to a different doctor. I gave up on him. I just gave up. It's like, you're not going to listen to me. And in the back of my mind, I'm going to be honest with you. Doctors take a vow that says they will do no harm. In my book, that practical advice, that's standard advice, without the emphasis on lifestyle change, including what the dietitian told me. Sorry. That idea of eating complex carbohydrates making a difference. So it did harm. And I just didn't have the courage to look at him and say, you harmed me. And I'm not going to sue you, but you harmed me and you need to think about it. I didn't want to do that. As a hypnotist, then I had these people call, I lost 100 pounds. It just fell off. It fell off. I came out, I'm walking into my office one day. The massage therapist across the hall said, Joseph, I need to speak with you. And he looked at me and he said, congratulations on the weight loss. I knew I was tightening my belt, but I didn't think it was that much. He said, congratulations on the weight loss, but this, and he gestured to my body, he said, this is unprofessional. It's like, what do you mean? He said, these clothes are just hanging on you. You are a professional person. You offer a professional service. You need to go shopping. One of our colleagues actually said exactly the same thing to me maybe 2 months earlier at a conference. But I didn't pay attention. I went from a 50 waist. It was a snug 48, if I'm going to be honest, 50, down to a 38 in that time. I'm now 36, sometimes 34, depending on the cut. No. And it's been off for 5 years. Now these people are coming to me and they're telling me they want to lose weight. And I'm thinking to myself, I can't ethically do what I used to do. What I used to do in hypnosis is help them eat less and exercise more. I'll get them off of sweets. Well, that's still useful, but eat less, exercise more is, it doesn't work. It works for a while, but then your body starts changing, your metabolism gets messed up, and it doesn't work anymore. And it gets harder and harder and harder. Now, you might look at me and say, Joseph, but I've done that for years. Of course you have, because that's the way we've been trained. But now I'm going to show you how to do it right. Look, the first client that I said this to, I said, look, I cannot ethically do what I did before. And she said, why not? Why not? Why not? It's like, I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to hurt you. And so I told her my story. She said, okay, let's do it your way. Let's see. Let's try. She was doing great. She did great. Lives change. So the thing is, though, metabolic science keeps progressing. So all the stuff you're learning here, some of it's going to change a year from now. Some of it's going to change 2 years from now. New stuff will be added. But I've dedicated my practice now to this. And I am so glad you're joining me on this journey. I hope I've inspired you a little bit, but I want you to understand where this comes from. I learned a lot. I learned a lot, and the learning never stops. See you in the next video.